As Barry said, this book was actually published at the end of January. The picture is two drawings I made in York Museum, in fact. And one of them is by Grace Perry, and the other one is by a local sculptor. And they just appealed to me because it looks like two parts of me, in a way. Anyway, you have a look at the book and see what you think. Tonight, I'm offering it for £1 off, so it's £9. And what's the book about? Well, I was brought up, I think I said this last time I was here, I was brought up not that far from here for most of my childhood, in Fareham. And Fareham at that time was a small, very small market town, in fact, separate from everything else. And it was surrounded by water meadows, because there was a stream running through past it. Well, everybody hear me all right? Because my voice is a bit thin tonight. So the first poem I'm going to read you is about a memory of the water meadows in Fareham, which is now a big housing estate. However, the water meadows. Cross a grey highway, open clanging metal gate, swim through gold ocean, climb on wooden stile, intrepid footsteps, dainty petals, telltale dung, squat by green water, tiddlers swarming over stones, nets scooping in shallows, shaded shallows, toad under twiggy elbow, dragon in a dream, a yellow meadow, creatures hidden in a dark stream, the curiosity of cows. And of course, I'm remembering being about that high, and I loved buttercups. I also spent time in Scotland when I was a child, which to me was rather dark, especially in winter. And I had a very lonely, dark walk home from the bus, about a mile from the village, because my parents had hired a beautiful old house on the banks of the Firth, in fact. This is called On Walking Home from School in Winter. The trees are singing wildly, thrashing their branches in the muddy sky. It's 5 o'clock. Night is falling. Families who are gathered round the fireside for tea see only darkness in their windows. Out here, it's dim twilight. Thin, this avenue of flailing aspens flickers out a code, where I read of dangers that adults don't suspect. A ragged fox slips slantwise along the hedge. I stride on, singing, "Onward, Christian soldiers." The dusk devils who watch and wait may not be fooled by my bluff. And going on, changing season, midsummer, and I became an art teacher. This is midsummer in the art room. This morning I run the gauntlet of dripping lavender, the petunias glad after last night's storm, the sky empty grey, sports days postponed. I'm condemned to mix paste in my plastic cauldron, help turn out facsimiles of cupcakes for giants, baguettes for ogres, cans of Coke 4 feet high. Then, with an army of chattering elves, I'm making faces and masks to hide them in. In company with fairies, I transmute shoes into animals, trainers into volcanoes. At home, waking from an exhausted daydream, I fall in love with the memory of a papier-mâché donkey, whose ears were made in cardboard today. And collecting Oberon from the station, I'm recreated as Titania. My prince chants his spell, works his magic, and produces salmon, coleslaw, potato salad, and a glass of orange juice with bits. And let's move away from memoir and childhood memories, career memories. This is the nearest I'll ever get to science fiction. Only the best. This would be no picnic, they told us. No summer break. No round trip. No going back. Frosted in the hold, we lay like monuments to ourselves, the life support cables dangling above, ready for instant automatic connection in the event of sudden temperature rise. Our mute faces lay under spectroglass visors, the children clutching teddy bears, Buzz Lightyears, Barbies. Our adult skulls were full of frozen thoughts and snapshots of excited anticipation. Did the ship drone, hum, roar? Did it buck and yaw on astral winds, dip into deep space troughs, spiral dizzily through Saturn's rings, on the way out of the sun's safe haven? Only the distressed panels of its hull gave us clues as unsteadily we disembarked on the arms of the welcome stewards. Only the children were not sombre when they saw the town. They held up their teddies, their Buzz Lightyears, their Barbies. Look, they cried, as we surveyed the fourth bridge, towering next to the pyramids of Giza. The Amazon, lined with skyscrapers from Manhattan. The Sydney Opera House, proudly rising next to the leaning Tower of Pisa. We only reported the best, the biggest, the steward said. And we stood there and wept for our suburban streets.
I love that one.
Thank you.
It gives you the images of all those famous places.
Yes.
Relocation.
Can you imagine?
Why not?
Yes. But would we like it? I wouldn't. Now, I'm all of us who write tend to, perhaps we all tend to dream, but a lot of us write about dreams. This is one of mine about dreams. And of course, my mother died in 2005, and some of my dreams are about her. And this one is called Fly, Love, Fly. In the dream, you are my daughter, not my mother. I lead you on a narrow path above the sea. At my shoulder, a sheer cliff. Below, a deep ravine. You are not afraid. You laugh, run ahead. I give chase, catch your hand, try to lead you to a safer place. Your hand shape shifts, becomes fish, flipper, slips. You fall slowly into air. In the dream, you are my daughter, not my mother. Which is why I call out to you from the path. Spread your arms out, love, and fly. Now, as I've said, I am a painter. One of the reasons I'm cutting back somewhat on publishing books is that I want to start up my painting again. And like poets, artists, painters get blocked. And this is somewhat about this. Beginning a painting. The canvas waits. Its white rectangular eye follows me. I avoid its accusatory stare. I know I should have started yesterday. I've cleaned my lumpy palette, scraped flat the residues of past creations, checked the brushes, flicked their silky manes, ranged them in a neat descending row. I've squeezed the metal tubes, meticulously rolled their flattened tails in tidy scrolls. The piles of cadmium, cobalt, red and gold, like tiny rainbow turds, lie waiting for my brush. A snowdrift of zinc white, a mine of lamp black, a sky's worth of cerulean, ultramarine, the hues like poems speaking, soothing, exciting, under the blank canvas stare. You must not mind the sense of violation that will last as long as the virgin surface gazes out, despite your urgent brushstrokes. Tell yourself, patience, this will pass, all will be resolved, but meanwhile persist, little by little, chaos will spawn new images. And another one about art, somebody else's art. Wondering. Drawing a copy of a copy of a copy of the Belvedere torso by Apollonius in the Crawford Art Gallery, Cork City, I speculate on the working day of the man who modelled for Apollonius when he made the original torso. Did he turn up for the job after a breakfast of goat steaks and grapes with all the pips in? Or honeycomb and yoghurt? Did he complete press-ups in an exercise regime? Or simply report to the studio after ploughing, or stacking grain stooks, or hauling fish nets from the wine-dark waves? And were his hands large and hard and brown and soft and kindly when he stroked his wife's hair, held his children? But perhaps there was no man to model for Apollonius, no studio, just a workshop full of sweating artisans with the archetypes of gods embedded in their minds and muscles. Workers who ate dolmades for their tea when they downed their chisels and Apollo drove his flaming chariot into the Aegean Sea. Something we'll never know. So, back to me. And when I was a teenager, I was tremendously ambitious. Of course, I wanted to do absolutely everything you could. And I've done quite a lot of things. Anyway, here's a list of, it's not quite a bucket list, it's a list of failures, really. Here we are. Ambition. I want to do it all, I said. I want to travel. I'll visit every country, every continent. I'll travel by camel, by elephant, by rickshaw, by jet ski, by helicopter, by supersonic plane, by yacht, by train, by balloon, by riding on the back of the dodo that I'll find on my famous scientific expedition. By Arctic sled, by sedan chair, by submarine, by rocket, but not on a horse or a bike, because they frighten me. I'll be famous for my dancing, my painting, my gymnastics. I'll be famous for inventing edible plastics, for my skill at quoits, for my sexual exploits, for my piety, my escapology, my tightrope walking, my fast talking in Swahili, my playwriting, my copywriting, my bullfighting, my politicking, my fair isle knitting, my witticisms, my literary criticisms. Yes, I'll do it all, I said. Did I? No, I didn't. There's still time. So I'm going to read a few poems now, recent poems, poems that one or two of them I wrote some time ago and re-edited recently. One I wrote today, virtually, no, yesterday. And here's another one about art, which isn't in the book. It's called Making Shadows Solid. Goya, in his darkness, was the witness. In the darkness, where a shattered mountain lies, a torso's clutched in greedy giant hands. Insanity is crouched to leap from a woman's eyes. Bleak depiction of dismemberment in foreign lands. Making shadows solid is the artist's task. Bacon painted existential fear of mortal weakness, endless circling on a tortured leash, stark rooms where figures writhe in synchronicity, a corridor of screaming tethered popes, each complex victim in a void, pinned mercilessly. Making shadows solid is the artist's goal. Rothko knew the void is never weightless, dark windows to a steady pulsing light, vibrating purple fading to a frame, open on the emptiness from which escaped no light. Meditations on a desperation without name, making shadows solid is the artist's need. I'm not really very musical. This poem was actually inspired by meeting somebody on a train who said his wife had died, but he felt much better after going to the South Bank and hearing Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane. So I listened to them as well, and I think I saw what he meant. So this is him coming home after getting off the train. Open the gate, and the moon's a dream sailing over the house. Hurrying clouds belie the moon's velocity, and I know the moon's a rock, and I know the moon's a dream too. My footsteps muted in the daylight moonlit garden. The memory of Coltrane slips in smoothly, and Thelonious playing those twinkling arpeggios in the breath of the risen moon, like exclamations of moonlight on dark canvas seas. And now Monk's exclamations, yes, no, yes, no, yes, 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 archipelagos of trills in a sea of warm crooning sax, and the moon sails, cocooned in soft halo, and I hear honey and silk and night birds. So, one of my favourite things is silence. I have written about silence. I think I've read a little conceit about silence here before. This one is called Silence Is. Silence is a blank white canvas, the pause before an opening chord, the moment before applause begins. Silence is threat, promise, and reward. Silence is a locked-up office block, an empty motorway, a locked-down town, the slowing lives, the worried frowns, the sky before the break of dawn. Silence is the sound of anxious thoughts, the thick black air in a sleepless room, the thump of blood in the temples, the gurgle in the gut, the sense of doom. Silence is dialogue exhausted, the end acknowledged, a vast emptiness after cacophony. Silence is escape to peace at last. And this is a poem for Ted Gouda. Some of you may know her. She comes from Arundel. She lives near Arundel. She ran an extremely good workshop in the Arundel Weekend Festival this year. And she brought along a slinky, those metal things that you put at the top of the stairs and they walk down the stairs like that, if you let them. A poem is a slinky. Teetering on the edge of thought, a poem topples into being, expands, retracts, reforms, rainbow rings, gathers momentum, travels to a new place, still true to its beginnings. The poet, surprised, delighted like a child, picks it up and sets it off again. Thank you. I'm going to finish off with the poem which gave my little book its name. I'll just get rid of these bits of paper here. And it's called Remembering the Future. And it's based on, well, it's a response to, the epigraph is, "It's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards," said the White Queen, in Alice Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. If I mourn now, remembering, I shall some day lose the warm swell of your breast under my cheek, the comfort of your gentle hands on my body. Like the White Queen, if I suffer now the pain that will grip my chest, as I lie here one day in the future, knowing you've gone, perhaps I can live time reversed, all grieving done, no tears to shed, time cancelled, my fingertips still exploring your beloved flesh, you and I in a perpetual present time. But no, my mourning will be of infinite duration. Better not to step through the looking glass. There will be no relief from remembering that you've gone, and no end to the pain. Best to keep my poor one-way memory that holds the presence of you, and remember only our precious years together. Thank you.